A man and a woman were seen working out together, while a female trainer sat nearby, observing them and taking notes on the man's performance during the session. When the man began to show signs of fatigue, it was the observer who continued to encourage him to push through. The workout was part of a personal training session. Earlier, the man had grown frustrated with his weight. Realizing that summer was nearing its end, he felt a strong desire to return to his former slim and fit self. This pushed him to commit to a diet and a more active lifestyle. One morning, he got out of bed determined to make a change. He left his house in search of a nearby gym where he could start working out. Not long into his walk, he came across a gym center close to his neighborhood. To his surprise, it offered personal training, something he hadn't expected. Curious about the place, he decided to step inside and take a look at how things were run. Although the exterior of the gym appeared somewhat worn down, the interior was surprisingly well-equipped and neatly organized, filled with a variety of fitness machines and gear. As he wandered through the space, unaware of his surroundings, a woman who had been standing behind him approached. She noted his interest and led him to her office, assuming he was there for a consultation. She later inquired how he had discovered the gym, mentioning that they didn't advertise heavily. He explained that he had simply noticed the sign while walking by and decided to stop in, since he lived in the area. It became clear to the woman that the man had little understanding of the unique approach their gym took toward fitness training. He appeared confident at first, assuming that it was simply a personal training facility, which was partially correct. However, the woman knew that personal training was only one aspect of what they offered, and she subtly began to hint at the more specialized structure of their programs. As she explained further, the man began to feel uneasy. Although he had mustered the courage to take the first step toward improving his health, he now found himself worried. The realization that this wasn't an ordinary gym, and that such services usually came with high fees, made him anxious. He knew his budget was tight, and the thought of not being able to afford a personal trainer weighed heavily on him. Eventually, unable to hold back his concern, he expressed interest in knowing the cost of membership. As he had feared, the woman informed him that each workout session was priced at 70,000 won. She also made it clear that the gym had a strict no-discount policy. The man, though unsurprised by the high cost, felt a mix of resignation and frustration. He had expected the price to be steep, but the confirmation still dampened his enthusiasm. Before any further explanations could be given, the woman informed him of another requirement. She produced a form and placed it before him, stating that a contract needed to be signed before any orientation or trial session could proceed. The man took the form and began to read through the details. It was a formal document that used terms like Party A and Party B, and included strict confidentiality clauses. Both parties were forbidden from disclosing anything seen or heard within the premises of the gym. The heavy legal tone and emphasis on secrecy struck him as excessive for what he had assumed would be a simple gym membership. With each passing moment, his doubt deepened. The price, the contract, the mysterious nature of the gym's policies. It all seemed too much for someone who had only wanted a place to burn off some fat and get back into shape. He began to question whether joining this gym was the right decision at all. Just then, the atmosphere shifted as another woman entered the office. Her name was Han, and she appeared to be looking for someone named Charim. She addressed the woman handling the consultation, who was named Soo-hyun. Soo-hyun informed Han that Charim was not present at the moment. However, Han didn't leave right away. Her eyes landed on the man sitting across from Soo-hyun, and she seemed visibly intrigued by his presence. Finding him cute, she casually asked Soo-hyun if he was a new member. In response, Soo-hyun clarified that she was merely in the middle of giving him an overview. Despite the brief exchange, Han did not simply walk away. With a playful smile and a hint of boldness, she turned to the man and expressed her hope that they might be able to work out together sometime. This remark caught the man off guard. He was confused, not just by her words, but by the suggestive tone in which they were delivered. Before he could respond or even process what she meant, Soo-hyun quickly stepped in. Realizing that Han was beginning to overstep and risk revealing information that was meant to be disclosed only under specific conditions, Soo-hyun acted swiftly. She calmly but firmly asked Han to leave, ensuring she wouldn't unintentionally share any confidential details that Wong, the man, wasn't yet authorized to know. After Han had exited, Soo-hyun turned back to the man and apologized for Han's behavior, especially for how forward she had been. But the man, not one to dwell on awkward encounters, waved off the apology and assured her it was nothing to worry about. At that point, he handed back the form he had previously been given. It was already filled out with his name Woong, clearly written at the top. Seeing this, Soo-hyun began referring to him by name from that moment forward. However, despite having submitted the form, Woong's intention wasn't to commit just yet. He wanted to fully understand what the gym truly offered before making a final decision. Understanding this hesitation, Soo-hyun began to explain that the workouts offered at their facility were not like those of typical gyms. The approach was far more specialized and centered around partner-based exercises designed to promote trust, coordination, and mutual motivation. But as she spoke, she sensed that her explanation might not be enough for Woong to grasp the full concept. Rather than continue with words alone, she invited him to follow her so she could show him directly. Woong agreed and followed her down a hallway until they arrived at a private training room. Inside, he observed a man and a woman working out together, following instructions given by a personal trainer who supervised the session. The workout was clearly physical but also highly synchronized, built around paired movements and shared momentum. It was nothing like the solitary or machine-focused routines Woong had imagined when he first considered joining a gym. Watching the session unfold in front of him, Woong felt a mix of surprise and curiosity. The nature of the exercises, the dynamic between the partners, and the energy in the room were all far more intense than he had expected. It was then that Soo-hyun took the opportunity to elaborate further. She explained that the foundation of their gym's philosophy was to create an enjoyable, collaborative environment where members worked closely with one another to achieve their fitness goals. The workouts were meant not only to build physical strength but also to encourage personal connection and shared progress. She then addressed the earlier document Woong had signed. The non-disclosure agreement, she explained, was necessary because the style of training and the nature of the sessions were considered proprietary and confidential. Even if he ultimately chose not to register, it was important to ensure that anything he had seen or heard would remain within the walls of the gym. Having explained everything, Soo-hyun finally produced the membership form. With a steady, professional tone, she presented it to Woong and asked if he now felt ready to commit. Woong stood there, staring at the membership form that was now being presented to him, his thoughts drifting as he mulled over everything he had just witnessed. A strange mix of disbelief and amusement crossed his mind. Was there truly a single man on earth who would say no to such an opportunity? The environment, the concept, even the way the workouts were structured, all of it was far from ordinary yet oddly appealing. Just as he reached out to take the form, Soo-hyun paused and didn't hand it over immediately. Instead, she informed him that the registration process for male members was more elaborate than what he might have anticipated. She led him into another section of the facility, speaking with measured clarity as she explained the rationale behind the extra steps. In her words, there had to be a strong system in place to ensure that their female members could participate in the gym services without fear or discomfort. This, she continued, required maintaining a balanced gender ratio and implementing a more careful vetting process for men. The implication was clear. Not every man who walked through their doors would automatically be accepted. As she explained further, Woong learned that the gym also conducted thorough screenings for their female members, an effort to create a sense of security and mutual trust across the board. While her words were delivered with professionalism and calm assurance, Woong couldn't help but feel a quiet jolt of unease. For the first time, it dawned on him that his earlier excitement might have been premature. There was a real possibility he could be turned away. Before he had time to dwell on it too much, Soo-hyun gently guided him to a small examination station, where she proceeded to take a sample of his blood and conduct a few other medical checks. She thanked him for his cooperation, maintaining her composed and courteous demeanor throughout. Woong, meanwhile, found himself sinking further into disbelief. He had simply wanted to lose weight and get back into shape before summer ended. Now here he was, undergoing a health screening in a mysterious gym that required legal agreements and conducted partner workouts under confidential conditions. It all felt surreal. When the procedures were complete, Soo-hyun informed him that the test results would be available shortly. He was free to return home in the meantime. If everything looked fine, she would notify him by text, and he could proceed to book his first class as early as the next day. As he walked out, thoughts swirled in his mind. Despite the unexpected turns and complex registration, he couldn't deny how strikingly beautiful Soo-hyun was: calm, graceful, and intimidatingly composed. He found himself admiring her more than he cared to admit. But that quiet admiration was cut short when Soo-hyun, before he could leave, reminded him of the non-disclosure agreement he had signed earlier. With a chilling calmness, she recounted that there had once been a member who uploaded a copy of the same document to an online community. Not long after, that person had mysteriously disappeared. As Soo-hyun delivered her final words with a cold, unwavering smile, she left Woong with a chilling impression that lingered long after he stepped out of the gym. Her statement, casual yet weighted, made it clear that the owner of the establishment was not someone to cross. With a casual nod to the extensive personal information he had already handed over, she implied it would be in his best interest to act with caution moving forward. The subtext was impossible to ignore, and as Woong walked away, his steps were heavy with unease. He tried to laugh it off at first, but as the cool breeze of the evening brushed against his skin, he couldn't stop his imagination from spiraling. A disturbing thought crept in. What if this was one of those horror stories, where his organs were harvested, and his name wiped from every official record? That fear remained lodged in his chest until the following morning. Yet, contrary to his morbid predictions, he awoke intact, alive, and with a message on his phone. Soo-hyun had informed him that his screening results were in and that everything looked excellent. There were no concerns, no abnormalities. He was, in her own words, very clean, a phrase that would repeat in his mind more than once that morning. When he returned to the gym, Soo-hyun welcomed him as their newest official member, her tone smooth and clinical as she reviewed his medical report. She emphasized again, almost pointedly, that his cell count was normal, he was free of infections, and generally he seemed to be in very good condition. Her emphasis on the word clean made Woong flinch internally, a subtle jab at his inexperience that he wasn't sure was intentional or not. Though she offered a quick apology, admitting she might have been insensitive in her phrasing, the awkward sting lingered. She then led him down a polished hallway to a new room, one softly lit and comfortably furnished. It was far more than he expected for a workout space. As they stepped inside, Soo-hyun casually asked whether he had thoroughly washed before coming, to which Woong nodded with perhaps a bit too much enthusiasm. She seemed satisfied with his eagerness. In the center of the room was a young woman already waiting. Another gym member, Soo-hyun explained, who would be his partner for today's session. The moment Woong laid eyes on her, he found himself taken aback. She was undeniably attractive, with a gentle presence that somehow made the situation feel even more surreal. He began to wonder, half-jokingly to himself, whether this gym only accepted beautiful people. As they exchanged polite greetings, he sensed a quiet curiosity in her gaze as well. Soo-hyun, ever the composed instructor, explained that since it was Woong's first official day, they would start off gently. The recommended activity, she stated, would be a massage for the gentleman, an introductory approach to familiarize him with the way their sessions were structured. Following her direction, the young woman moved gracefully behind him as he lay down on the padded mat, and with little hesitation, she began. Soo-hyun explained the philosophy behind their method. Partner massages, she said, weren't just a form of relaxation. They were the starting point for fostering physical familiarity and trust. It was a technique designed to promote connection while easing the body into a receptive state for the more intensive workouts to come. Her voice remained calm and instructive, almost clinical, as she guided the woman's hand placements and pressure. Woong, meanwhile, found himself increasingly distracted by the sensation. Her hands were incredibly soft, her motions careful and warm, and though he had walked in with suspicion still clinging to his nerves, now all he could feel was the oddly comforting weight of her presence and the soothing rhythm of her touch. He tried to remain still and composed, but his mind was racing. At one point, she remarked offhandedly that he was more muscular than she had expected, noting how his back had more definition than it appeared at first glance. Woong, slightly embarrassed, explained that he used to be quite active in the past, into sports and regular exercise until life caught up with him. He'd eventually let himself go, gaining weight and losing discipline. Woong couldn't help but feel uncertain about his emotions. The lady's gentle touch combined with the occasional sound of her deep breath made him think that if this was considered a workout, he would gladly do it every single day. Soo-hyun instructed him to lie on his back facing the ceiling, which he obediently did, but as he gazed at the lady's face, his nervousness grew to the point that he had to quickly look away. Noticing his reaction, Soo-hyun suggested that since they were ahead of schedule, they could move on to giving the lady a massage. Woong performed the massage so well that Soo-hyun inquired whether he had prior experience, to which he proudly acknowledged having learned it before. Soo-hyun then directed the lady to lie on her back and instructed Woong to place his hand on her chest and knee, leaving Woong shocked and unable to believe what he had just heard. Soo-hyun reminded Woong that she had fully explained the fitness center's premise on the first day, emphasizing the importance of a massage before the actual workout. She understood it was his first day, but if he continued to be shocked and embarrassed by everything happening, it would be difficult to proceed. She stressed that all members had agreed to participate in these workouts, and with the lady's agreement, it was acceptable for Woong to continue. Han was passing by and happened to glance into the office, spotting Charim inside. She paused to inquire whether Woong, the man she had shown interest in, had registered later. Charim, however, did not recognize who she was referring to. Growing frustrated, Han immediately asked about Soo-hyun, to which Charim replied that Soo-hyun had already started a session with a new member. The mention of a new member stirred anger in Han, as she was eager to know who it was, secretly hoping it wasn't Woong. Unable to provide a description, Charim simply gave the new member's name, which Han did not recognize. Feeling irritated and overlooked, she stormed off to find Soo-hyun, convinced that Soo-hyun had betrayed her trust by not informing her about Woong despite her earlier interest. Charim watched Han's departure with confusion, unaware of the full situation. Meanwhile, Woong was inside a room with his workout partner and Soo-hyun, his personal trainer, who was guiding him through the session. Woong anxiously awaited Soo-hyun's demonstration of certain exercises before beginning the main workout, aware that the lady he was paired with was sensitive and needed a gentle approach. Once Soo-hyun noticed that Woong and his partner had developed good chemistry, she instructed him to start the workout. Soo-hyun watched with anticipation, pleased that the lady seemed comfortable with the session. Elsewhere, Han continued searching for Woong and Soo-hyun, eventually encountering one of her clients, Miso, with whom she had already completed a workout earlier that morning. Miso invited her to join him for another session, but Han declined, explaining that she was looking for someone she believed to be far better than Miso. Skeptical, Miso insisted no one could be better than him and tried to persuade her to stay. But before he could stop her, Han had already caught a hint about the room where Soo-hyun and Woong might be and hurried off. Meanwhile, back in the session room, Woong is seen working out with his partner, while Soo-hyun provides guidance. Han eventually found the room where Woong and the lady were working out. She positioned herself by the window, careful to watch discreetly without being noticed. By that time, Miso had also arrived and stood beside her, both silently observing the session from outside. They could not enter immediately, as it was necessary to keep their presence hidden, watching the unfolding scene in secret. Inside, as the workout progressed, Woong grew increasingly fatigued and appeared ready to stop. However, Soo-hyun insisted that no breaks were allowed. After some time, she pushed him further, demanding that he continue for 5 more repetitions before he could rest. Woong agreed and pushed through, but when he reached the 4th repetition, Soo-hyun kept counting without signaling the final one. On the verge of exhaustion and nearly collapsing, Woong had to raise his voice to question why she hadn't moved on to the last count, desperate to know when he could finally stop. Still, Soo-hyun did not permit a break. Instead, she used the moment to assess what other exercises might benefit Woong. She devised a weightlifting routine to help accelerate his fat loss. Additionally, she recognized that despite his weight, Woong possessed considerable stamina, which could be leveraged in his training plan. Miso, standing just behind Han outside the room, was growing increasingly restless from watching the workout session unfolding inside. The intensity of what he observed stirred a mix of emotions within him, prompting him to invite Han to leave with him to a place where they could relax and enjoy themselves. Han had a momentary desire to accept Miso's invitation, but just as she was about to agree, she heard that Woong had finished his session inside. Without hesitation, she pushed Miso aside and hurried toward the door, determined to catch Woong before he left. Inside the room, Woong continued his workout with his partner, who appeared visibly satisfied and content with the session they were sharing. Soo-hyun was still observing and contemplating the best course of action when Han suddenly burst into the room, interrupting the moment. Soo-hyun was taken aback and quickly reminded Han that it was inappropriate to enter unannounced during a workout session. Han, however, explained that she had waited patiently outside for a long time before deciding to come in. Woong, looking up at that moment, was equally surprised to see Han, recognizing her as the same person who had approached him the day before. Without wasting any time, Han revealed how eager she was. She made it clear to Woong that since he had finished with the other lady, it was time for him to move on to her. As the first lady got up and stepped away from Woong, Han moved in close and initiated her own session. From the very beginning, Woong found this experience far more enjoyable than the previous one, and in his mind, he silently hoped that Han would never stop. Soo-hyun, momentarily stunned by the sudden turn of events, moved closer to the pair. This movement caused the other lady to think Soo-hyun intended to intervene or chase Han away, but instead, Soo-hyun calmly asked Woong to include her in the workout as well. This unexpected request left Woong bewildered, wondering what could possibly be going on between the two women at the X-Gym Fitness Center. Inside the quiet office, Charim was seen casually scrolling through his phone, a hint of unease flickering across his face. The gym felt unusually empty that day, and as he muttered to himself, he hoped that this wasn't a sign of declining business. He tried to distract himself by reading comics on his phone, but beneath the surface, a nagging worry lingered. The thought of the gym failing troubled him deeply, as he doubted he would ever find another job quite as good or as fitting for him. The uncertainty weighed on him more than he cared to admit. Shortly after, a soft knock at the door broke the silence. Charim looked up and asked if the visitor was a new member, to which she replied affirmatively, explaining that it was her very first time at the gym. Instantly, Karim's mind raced with concerns about how the male members might react to her presence. He imagined they would be upset or thrown off balance if she were allowed inside. Despite his inner reservations and the subtle annoyance bubbling up, he maintained a polite demeanor and asked how she had heard about the fitness center. She explained that an acquaintance who sold health supplements had recommended the place. Charim inwardly cringed, realizing that the person who referred her clearly hadn't been as selective or cautious as he had advised. Curious but cautious, Charim asked the newcomer if she was already familiar with the types of workouts offered at the gym. She blushed slightly and admitted that while she had a general idea, she wasn't entirely sure if she had understood everything correctly. At this point, Charim presented her with a non-disclosure agreement, explaining that he couldn't share too many details without it being signed. She signed eagerly without hesitation. Although Charim wore a polite smile on his face, he felt a rising frustration inside that this new member had arrived during his shift, adding complexity to his day. After she completed the paperwork, he got to know her as Cha-hyuna. Charim then assured her that he would explain how everything worked during the gym tour. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the gym, Soo-hyun was grappling with her own frustrations. She felt increasingly annoyed by Han's persistent interference in the workout session between Woong and his female partner. Han's disregard for Soo-hyun's clear instructions only added to the tension. Following the first session with Han, Soo-hyun reminded Woong that he was not yet finished and still needed to complete his workout with his female partner. Hyuna, observing the workout session from a distance, found herself quietly captivated. As Charim continued the gym tour, leading her through another section, their attention was suddenly drawn to a male member sitting alone in a corner, visibly upset and sulking. Concerned, Charim approached him and inquired about what was troubling him. Overwhelmed by emotion, the man suddenly broke down in tears, clinging to Charim as he confessed that his sister had abandoned him once again, leaving him feeling lost and forsaken. At the same moment, Soo-hyun's patience snapped. Frustrated and angry, she sharply rebuked the members, declaring that if they intended to act however they pleased without regard for guidance or discipline, then the role of a trainer was meaningless, so much so that she might as well leave altogether. Her outburst sent a ripple of tension through the gym. Meanwhile, Hani stepped forward, her tone softer yet resolute as she apologized to Soo-hyun for her earlier behavior. It was then revealed that Han was not just another member or visitor but the actual owner of the gym. Soo-hyun's frustration reached a boiling point as she snapped sharply at Hani, who was trying to shield herself behind the crying man from earlier. Soo-hyun declared this confrontation to be the final straw. She explained that when Hani had initially claimed the gym was strictly for exercise, she had taken her seriously and put in genuine effort, believing in the sincerity of that statement. But Hani's recent actions, Soo-hyun insisted, were a complete violation of that trust and the gym's principles. Feeling deeply betrayed and disillusioned, Soo-hyun announced her decision to quit working there. In response, Hani clung desperately to Soo-hyun, warning that without her as trainer, the gym would surely collapse. She repeated her apologies, trying to salvage the situation. However, Soo-hyun rejected her attempts outright, pushing Hani away and harshly accusing her of trying to distort the story. Soo-hyun reminded her that all she had done was take care of Hani when she found her drunk in the middle of the day, bringing her to the hospital because she genuinely thought Hani was ill. She then recounted how embarrassed she felt when the doctor dismissed the situation as merely excessive drinking. Overwhelmed by anger and humiliation, Soo-hyun stormed out of the office, leaving the tension hanging thick in the air. Shortly afterward, Woong approached Soo-hyun to thank her sincerely for the day's session. She acknowledged that, despite the unexpected disruptions, it was only his first day and understandable that he felt overwhelmed. Soo-hyun assured him that if he wished, she would make sure Hani, the source of the earlier chaos, would not be paired with him in future sessions. To her surprise, Woong quickly and somewhat bashfully admitted that he had actually enjoyed the experience more than he expected. Seizing the moment, Soo-hyun asked when he would like to book the next session. Woong mentioned his weekend work schedule, so they agreed on a date that fit his availability. She also reminded him that if any changes came up, he could simply send her a message on the number she had texted him from the day before, ensuring they could stay in easy contact moving forward. Woong stepped out of the gym, his eyes glued to the screen as he stared at Soo-hyun's number saved in his phone. A small smile played on his lips as a faint thought crossed his mind, wondering just how long it had been since he'd gotten a girl's number. Almost immediately, he shook off the notion, firmly telling himself that Soo-hyun wasn't just any girl, but his trainer. As he wandered through his swirling thoughts about how involved Soo-hyun had been during his workout, a sudden, blaring car horn shattered his reverie. Instinctively, he jumped out of the way, his heart pounding from the close call. Breathing heavily, Woong couldn't help but wonder if that near miss was some kind of cosmic punishment, a karmic consequence for letting his mind wander down dangerous paths. Still, even as he tried to push the thoughts aside, a fleeting question popped into his head. Did Soo-hyun have a boyfriend? He quickly stopped himself from going further down that line of thinking, chastising himself silently for getting distracted. Meanwhile, in the quiet confines of a motel room, Charim lay on the bed, his eyes fixed on Soo-hyun's phone as he read a text from Hani. The message seemed to reveal the reason behind Soo-hyun's fierce anger earlier. It became clear that Soo-hyun and Charim were in a relationship, and as Charim thought about the situation, he couldn't help but reflect on how happy both Hani and Woong's workout partner had appeared during their sessions. In a luxurious penthouse elsewhere, Miso was busy doing the dishes, casually chatting with Hani. He expressed his belief that love was the most important thing in life, which made Hani burst out laughing. Seeing his irritated reaction, she quickly softened the moment, teasing that she laughed because he was adorable. Noticing the clean dishes, Hani asked why he had bothered to do them since someone was scheduled to come by and clean the next day. Hani suddenly exclaimed that she had just thought of a brilliant idea, leaving Miso curious and intrigued. In a dimly lit room, the soft glow of candlelight flickered gently against the walls, casting warm shadows across the space. Miso lay stretched out on the bed, wearing nothing but a simple apron that barely concealed his toned physique. Hani's eyes lingered appreciatively on the sight before her, a hint of admiration sparkling in her gaze as she commented on how his body seemed to have improved, questioning if he'd been working out more intensely lately. Miso smiled knowingly and confessed that his real motivation was simply to capture her attention more fully. With a playful smile, Hani teasingly asked if he was ready to handle all the attention she was about to give him. Yet Miso, suddenly serious, insisted that she must be completely uninterested in him, his tone betraying a hint of disappointment. Hani quickly pieced together the cause of his mood, the fact that she hadn't worked out with him earlier that day, and promised that next time, she would be sure to invite him along. She even suggested that they book a session together for tomorrow, mentioning that she would call Charim and Suhyun to coordinate the plan. Before she could reach for her phone, however, Miso swiftly snatched it away from her. With a playful but firm tone, he reminded Hani of the unspoken rule they'd agreed on. While she might have her way with everything else, when it came to just the two of them, phones were off limits. As he glanced at the screen, his eyes caught sight of a picture of himself doing the dishes alongside Hani that had been posted online. Without hesitation, he deleted the post, softly declaring that tonight, he intended to have her full and undivided attention. The small, unexpected gesture sparked a thought in Hani's mind, making her wonder why every time she looked at Miso, she felt a strong desire to be close to him. This feeling inspired her to suggest they spend some time working out together. Noticing her thoughts, Miso teasingly remarked that he was better than Woong in many ways, speaking with a confident but playful tone. However, his comment caused Hani to lose some interest, and she expressed her annoyance at his comparison, saying she was getting distracted from their workout. Recognizing his mistake, Miso apologized sincerely, explaining that his words came from feeling a bit insecure. Deep down, he knew he felt jealous of Woong's presence in her life, but he kept that to himself, understanding that sharing it might upset Hani. After his apology, Hani softened and forgave him quickly. She even offered him the chance to stay close throughout the evening, deepening their bond and enjoying the time they spent together. Many days later, Woong was busy at work, but his mind wasn't fully focused on his tasks. He kept glancing at the clock, eagerly counting down the minutes because his shift was set to end in less than an hour. The anticipation of finishing work and heading home made it difficult for him to concentrate. Just then, a couple entered the store. The man appeared to recognize Woong instantly, a knowing smile playing on his lips. However, the woman beside him looked visibly surprised to learn that her partner actually knew Woong. As they moved through the aisles, out of Woong's earshot, the man reminded his girlfriend that he had already told her about Woong before, about how Woong had once dominated the national judo competitions, often taking first place. But there was one particular incident he recounted where Woong had failed to make it past the preliminaries, a rare and embarrassing defeat for someone of his caliber. The man then gestured discreetly in Woong's direction, telling his girlfriend, "That's him. The guy I was talking about." Meanwhile, Woong, seemingly unaffected by their conversation, continued to check the time impatiently, hoping the remainder of his shift would pass quickly so he could leave and get on with his day. The man began mocking Woong under his breath, telling his girlfriend that he had always wondered what Woong would do with his life after quitting judo so abruptly, given his promising career. Now, seeing him working at a convenience store, the man couldn't help but scoff at the contrast. The girlfriend, however, cautioned him quietly, warning him not to speak too loudly lest Woong overheard their disparaging remarks. After finishing their shopping, the couple approached the counter to pay. When it came time to receive change, the man deliberately told Woong to keep it, as if it were a small gesture of kindness or perhaps a patronizing way to assert superiority. Woong thanked him politely, even adding that he hoped they would come again, maintaining a courteous demeanor despite the earlier awkwardness. Though Woong had overheard snippets of their earlier conversation, he chose to believe they were simply discussing whether they could afford to give him some extra money. As the couple left, Woong gathered his things and headed home. On his way, memories from a year ago flooded back. Memories of when he was still actively competing in fighting tournaments. He recalled the day his knee suddenly started hurting during a crucial match, the pain becoming too intense to ignore, and eventually costing him the fight. Following the match, he visited a doctor to get a diagnosis. The medical professional delivered the difficult news. Woong had significantly less cartilage in his knee than normal. Since cartilage serves as a cushion to protect and ease the movement of joints, its deficiency meant that Woong's knee lacked the necessary padding to function properly, making movement painful and limiting his ability to perform at the level he once had. After delivering the diagnosis, the doctor asked Woong if he was involved in any sports at the time. Woong nodded and admitted that he was actually a judoka, someone who practiced judo seriously. Hearing this, the doctor's expression grew more serious. He advised Woong firmly that continuing to practice judo, or any high-impact sport, was not advisable given the condition of his knee. This came as a shock to Woong. He had hoped that, with a bit more caution, Maybe by being careful not to bend his knees too much or avoiding sudden movements, he could still continue. He never imagined he would have to give up something that had been such a big part of his life. The doctor made it clear, however, that merely being careful would not be enough. If Woong chose to push through the pain and keep training as usual, by the time he reached 30 years old, he was only 20 then. He should be prepared to live the rest of his life confined to a wheelchair. The starkness of that warning left a heavy weight on Woong's shoulders. Because of this, Woong had no choice but to quit judo, a decision that still frustrated and upset him to this day. He often thought back to the way the doctor had explained his condition. To him, it seemed unfair. After all, his knee didn't hurt at all during normal walking or daily activities, so why should he stop the sport he loved? It was only later that he realized the pain flared up whenever he got into a fighting stance or started making the quick, sharp moves required in judo. As these memories played in his mind, Woong found himself thinking about the guy who had come into the store earlier with his girlfriend, the one who had badmouthed him. Back when Woong was actively competing in judo, that guy could never beat him. In fact, Woong was confident that if they were to spar now, despite his knee, he could still take the guy down. Lost in his thoughts, Woong was startled when he suddenly heard someone call his name. Turning quickly, he didn't notice a group of dogs that had been chasing him earlier. Before he could react, he collided straight into them, breaking the moment and snapping him back to reality. Soo-hyun quickly apologized for her dog's somewhat unexpected behavior, explaining that the dog had a tendency to be overly energetic around strangers. Woong reassured her that it wasn't a problem at all, admitting that he had been momentarily confused when he heard his name being called and didn't expect it to be from his trainer. Soo-hyun then clarified that her dog's name was also Woong, which took him by surprise. The coincidence of sharing a name with a dog struck him as unusual, and Soo-hyun admitted that she had been quite surprised the first time she saw his name on the training roster. She speculated that Woong must be a local, as it was common for people living nearby to come to the park for walks or exercise. Soo-hyun added that the park was so vast and popular that sometimes it felt like there were more dogs than people there on any given day. Woong agreed with this observation, mentioning that it seemed like almost every dog owner in the neighborhood made this park their regular walking spot. As they walked side by side, they casually chatted, sharing bits about their routines and the joys of the park's natural atmosphere. The conversation flowed easily, revealing a comfortable camaraderie that hadn't quite been there before. Eventually, their paths diverged, and Soo-hyun encouraged him to keep up the hard work, expressing confidence that if he stayed consistent, he would reach his fitness goals in no time. Though Woong smiled and played along with her encouragement, internally he felt a twinge of guilt. In truth, he had only taken a shortcut through the park on his way home, not intending to turn it into a workout session. Soo-hyun mentioned that she often came to the park on weekends to walk her dog, suggesting that they might run into each other again sometime soon. Later at the gym, a male and female member were both deep into their workout routines, but the woman's attention was clearly focused elsewhere, on their trainer, Charim. Throughout the session, Charim was attentive, offering words of encouragement and guidance tailored to the female client's form and effort. The woman responded enthusiastically, motivated by his praise and keen to improve her performance under his watchful eye. Meanwhile, the male member grew increasingly frustrated as he noticed the dynamic unfolding between Charim and the female client. It wasn't the first time he had felt sidelined during these sessions, and today, his patience finally reached its limit. As the workout wrapped up, he approached Charim directly, his voice tinged with irritation. At first, he had tried to rationalize the situation, telling himself this might be the normal way trainers interact with their clients, especially women. But now, he could no longer ignore the fact that Karim's attention was almost exclusively devoted to the female members, leaving him feeling invisible and unimportant. He voiced his frustration openly, claiming that it seemed the women only cared about Charim, who in turn was so engrossed with them that he barely acknowledged the male client's presence. The man expressed that although he understood the goal was fitness, it felt like he was nothing more than a third wheel, forced to put in all the effort while Charim and the female member were clearly invested in each other's company far more than him. Charim, however, appeared dismissive, brushing off the complaint as if it were trivial. This only further fueled the male member's anger, prompting him to demand a conversation with the gym manager, insisting that he could no longer tolerate being overlooked. At that moment, Hani entered the scene with a worried sigh, her expression showing concern over the escalating situation. Charim turned to her, explaining that the gym had already issued a full refund to the dissatisfied client, and that he was prepared to take full responsibility for the financial loss incurred. Despite Karim's attempt to ease the situation by taking accountability, Hani's focus was elsewhere. She told him firmly that the monetary issue wasn't the core problem. Hani noted that complaints of this nature had been becoming increasingly common, signaling a pattern that needed to be addressed beyond just issuing refunds. Charim, with a hint of pride, suggested that perhaps his exceptional skills and ability to connect with clients were to blame for the situation. However, Hani was not convinced or willing to indulge his perspective. She reminded him that while a certain level of physical contact was necessary to demonstrate proper technique and ensure safety during workouts, it was crucial that he maintain a professional boundary at all times. As Charim left the office, a shadow of doubt crossed Hani's mind. She found herself quietly wondering how Soo-hyun could have ended up with someone like him. Someone so oblivious to the feelings and concerns of those around him. The thought lingered as she turned her attention back to the gym's daily bustle. Meanwhile, Hyuna was making her way toward the gym, carrying a small bag filled with various body lotions and skincare products she had recently purchased. Her excitement was palpable as she walked, her steps light and eager. She couldn't help but wonder who her workout partner would be today. The anticipation of a good session made her smile, and she practically bounced with energy as she pushed open the gym doors. Upon entering, her eyes immediately caught sight of Miso in the middle of his workout routine. She paused for a moment, unable to tear her gaze away from his well-defined figure and the effortless strength he displayed. Her admiration was clear, even if she tried to play it cool. Charim, who happened to be nearby with Miso, noticed Hyuna standing there and couldn't resist commenting with a teasing remark about her arriving earlier than usual. Hyuna's cheeks flushed a soft pink as she quickly offered an excuse, admitting she had simply miscalculated her timing. Miso gave her a warm smile, a simple greeting that sent a flutter through Hyuna's chest. She almost felt like she could lose her composure right there, her admiration nearly spilling over into a grin. Charim, ever the practical trainer, suggested that since she was already there, she might as well start warming up on the treadmill. At first, Hyuna protested gently, saying that she didn't think it was necessary to start so early, but Charim was persistent. He kindly but firmly led her toward the treadmill. As Hyuna reluctantly climbed onto the machine, she began rubbing her hands on the treadmill's handles, silently regretting her early arrival now that she was stuck warming up. Yet, despite her mild annoyance, her eyes kept darting back to Miso, who was finishing his final repetitions. Each glance made her heart beat a little faster, and she was grateful for the unexpected opportunity to watch him in action up close. Just as she was settling into her reluctant warm-up, Charim turned to Miso and informed him it was time to finish up and get ready for his next session. The moment the words left Karim's mouth, Hyuna felt a sudden rush of warmth flood her cheeks. Her mind raced as she silently wondered if she was about to be Miso's partner for the upcoming workout. As Hani stepped into the gym, her presence quickly caught the attention of a young man working at the front desk. Not recognizing her, he politely asked what she needed, his tone curious but professional. Standing beside him, the gym manager glanced over and immediately recognized Hani. A warm smile spread across her face as she acknowledged Hani's arrival, clearly pleased to see her. Hani approached the two, greeting the new guy with a friendly nod while facing the manager. She mentioned casually that it was obvious the young man was new to the job. As she glanced back at him, she couldn't help but notice how striking he looked. Without thinking much, she complimented him, telling him he looked cute. The unexpected praise caused the guy to blush slightly, clearly flattered since no one had ever called him that before. However, the manager's expression quickly shifted from welcoming to annoyed. With a sharp tone, she snapped at Hani, accusing her of trying to steal her employee once again. It was clear she wasn't about to let that happen this time. Hani hurried to clarify her intentions, reassuring the manager that she had no plans to poach any workers, wanting to avoid any misunderstandings, especially with others around who might overhear the heated exchange. Still, the manager was insistent, explaining how difficult it had been for her to find someone as good-looking as the young man in the gym uniform. She emphasized that she would not tolerate Hani walking in and trying to lure him away. Hani listened thoughtfully, realizing the manager wasn't entirely wrong. Memories flickered back of Miso, who had once looked just as appealing in a similar uniform before Hani, had eventually taken him away from that very same gym. The manager then added a final detail, admitting that despite his good looks, the young man wasn't actually very skilled at making coffee or handling the usual tasks. She had hired him mostly for his appearance, which made it even harder to imagine losing him now. Unable to find any more words to argue her point, Hani decided to take a different approach. She placed an order for 4 Americanos, choosing to patronize the lady at the counter in a subtle gesture of goodwill. This simple act seemed to lift the woman's mood significantly, causing a brief but genuine smile to appear on her face. As the lady busied herself preparing the drinks, Hani took the opportunity to quietly engage the young man in some unexpected questions. The nature of her inquiries caught him off guard, leaving him visibly shocked and struggling to keep up with the sudden barrage of curiosity. Sensing the tension rising, the woman quickly brought over the completed coffee order, placing it carefully on the counter before hastily retreating from the scene. Meanwhile, the young employee, still recovering from the surprise of Hani's odd questions, decided to approach the manager later to find out exactly who she was. The manager, with a knowing look, revealed that Hani wasn't just any customer. She was, in fact, the owner of the entire building, a fact that explained much of her confident demeanor. As Hani stepped outside the coffee shop, a thought struck her. She needed to remember to give the new guy her business card the next time they crossed paths. After all, she wasn't sure if he might also be interested in working out with her someday, and it would be good to keep that option open. With that plan in mind, she made her way upstairs to the gym center, where she encountered Woong standing right at the doorstep. Her face immediately lit up with happiness upon seeing him, and she cheerfully asked if he had come to work out that day. Woong answered affirmatively, though internally, he felt a wave of awkward embarrassment at unexpectedly running into Hani outside the gym environment. Hani explained that she too had come to work out and expressed a hopeful desire that they might be paired together for the session. She mentioned how their last time together hadn't felt official or complete, and meeting again now filled her with excitement. She even asked Woong if he felt the same way, to which Woong, reluctant but unable to refuse, lied and said he was happy about the prospect. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the gym, Miso was in the men's locker room, tidying himself up after a workout. Soo-hyun happened to walk by and greeted him warmly, noting how she had observed his recent dedication to exercising. She specifically pointed out that he looked as though he had just finished a weightlifting session. Miso replied calmly but with a hint of pride that his efforts were all aimed at building both muscle and stamina, signaling his commitment to improving his physical condition. Soo-hyun praised Miso's workout plan enthusiastically, telling him that he already had an impressive physique. She pointed out that with a little more weightlifting, he would look absolutely fantastic, so much so that she was confident Hani would be genuinely pleased with the results. Hearing such encouraging words from Soo-hyun brought a genuine smile to Miso's face. Yet, despite his happiness, he couldn't help but ask her again if she was truly sure that Hani would be satisfied with his efforts. Soo-hyun, caught slightly off guard by the question, didn't immediately grasp the deeper meaning behind it. Miso then explained, somewhat hesitantly, that the real reason he had been pushing himself so hard at the gym was because he wanted to look good for Hani. He confided that he believed if he just put in a little more effort, he could become someone who would satisfy her completely, making her happy with just him. Although Soo-hyun could sense the underlying struggle in Miso's heart, she chose not to delve into the complexities of his relationship with Hani. She knew that the root of the issue wasn't really about whether Miso was fit or not, but something far more complicated. Instead, she redirected the conversation, asking if he hadn't worked out at the gym before all this. Miso nodded honestly and shared that he had indeed been coming to the gym prior to all this, but along the way he found himself falling for Hani. He admitted he thought she liked him too, even though they had never explicitly talked about their feelings. Somehow, despite the lack of clear communication, they had drifted into what felt like a relationship. Miso confessed that he had assumed they would stop coming to the gym together, but recently, it felt different. Observing Hani's reaction, he realized that to her, he seemed no different than any other guy at the gym. Just another face in the crowd, nothing special. The realization hit him hard, and he admitted to Soo-hyun that he might have been fooling himself by believing they were truly together, just because she had been kind to him. As Miso poured out his thoughts and frustrations, Soo-hyun was about to offer him some advice or comfort when they suddenly heard their names being called from behind. Soo-hyun turned around and saw Hani and Woong approaching. Immediately, Miso's gaze locked onto Hani as she clung closely to Woong. A burning sensation of anger welled up inside Miso's chest, making it difficult for him to maintain his composure. Soo-hyun, momentarily at a loss for words, asked how it was possible that both of them had arrived at the gym at the same time. Hani casually explained that they had bumped into each other by chance at the elevator. Hani glanced toward Woong with a hopeful smile and asked Soo-hyun if she was paired with him for their workout session that day. Soo-hyun, however, remained silent, choosing not to answer directly. The tension in the air was palpable. Meanwhile, Miso's feelings were spiraling into something far darker. Resentment and jealousy toward Woong began to fester intensely, growing beyond what he could control. Soo-hyun, perceptive as ever, understood the volatile emotions brewing between the two men immediately. Without missing a beat, she gently but firmly took Hani by the arm and led her away from Woong, softly telling her that the guys needed to head to the showers and get ready for their sessions. Left alone, Miso and Woong exchanged polite greetings. Their words courteous but their thoughts anything but friendly. Woong inwardly found Miso unappealing, convinced that was precisely the reason Hani was drawn to him. A kind of charm that Woong couldn't fathom. On the other hand, Miso's mind was consumed with the thought that if it weren't for the workouts Hani genuinely enjoyed doing with Woong, she would inevitably grow bored of him in time. The silent battle of dislike simmered between them as they both went off to shower. Meanwhile, in the women's locker room, Hani was preparing to step into the shower when she noticed a new face. Hyuna. Hani's eyes immediately wandered appreciatively over Hyuna's figure, admiring the physique. She was so impressed that she couldn't resist striking up a conversation. Curious and genuinely impressed, Hani asked Hyuna if she was a new member at the gym. Hyuna shyly nodded and revealed that it was actually her very first day. Hani's admiration only grew, and in a moment of candid awe, she blurted out, "Is your body real?" The question caught Hyuna completely off guard. She hadn't expected such a direct compliment, and the shock was evident on her face. Before Hani could say anything further, Soo-hyun quickly intervened. Without a word, she gently covered Hani's mouth with her hand, signaling her to hold back, and promptly apologized to Hyuna for Hani's bluntness, doing her best to smooth over the awkward moment. Hyuna was sitting quietly in the dressing room, letting out a deep sigh of relief as she mentally replayed the intense encounter with Hani earlier. The way Hani had been so aggressive and forceful during their workout had left Hyuna a bit shaken, but in retrospect, it made sense. After all, with the workouts at this gym being so different and intense compared to what she was used to, it wasn't surprising that there might be some eccentric members among them. She reminded herself to stay cautious but also determined. After gathering her thoughts, Hyuna carefully changed into fresh clothes and took her time doing her makeup, wanting to look presentable and confident for the rest of the day's sessions. Not long after she finished, Charim appeared at the door, his expression a mix of mild impatience and professionalism. He gently reminded her that she had taken longer than expected to get ready. Hyuna quickly apologized, explaining that she had been washing up and preparing herself properly. Charim nodded but emphasized that, unlike most personal training gyms where punctuality might be flexible, their gym had a strict policy. Whenever a member was late, it wasn't just the trainer who was kept waiting, but also the workout partner. Realizing this, Hyuna's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she apologized once more, realizing that Miso, her partner for the session, must have been waiting outside the room. As they made their way to the workout room, Charim introduced Hyuna to a new partner who would be joining her for today's training session. But as soon as Hyuna saw the man, a sudden wave of recognition and confusion washed over her. In a swift, almost instinctive motion, she slammed the door shut with surprising force, causing Charim to jump back in alarm. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed, clearly taken aback. He urged her to open the door immediately, trying to keep the situation under control. Meanwhile, Hyuna stood frozen, her mind racing as she tried to place where she had seen this man before. The sight of him stirred up memories and questions. Why was he here? Her thoughts drifted back to 3 years ago, to a modest restaurant where it all began. She had introduced herself as a freshman, just 20 years old, majoring in math education. The atmosphere had been casual but nervous, She remembered how the male freshman from the biotech department had stood up shakily to introduce himself as Lee Sun-yu. Everyone had told him to relax, but his anxious demeanor was hard to miss. Meanwhile, Hyuna's gaze lingered on Sun-yu, quietly observing him as he smiled and chatted with the group. There was something unexpectedly endearing about him, a kind of shy charm that made her think he was somewhat cute. The evening unfolded with plenty of laughter and a steady flow of beer, everyone gradually loosening up. As the conversation turned to personal struggles, Hyuna found herself complaining about her constant battle with weight, how no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't seem to shed any pounds even now that she was in college. Sun-yu, with a slight chuckle, confessed that he felt the opposite. He had always been envious of people who could lose weight easily, as he himself could barely put on any weight at all. One by one, the other students drifted away until only Hyuna and Sun-yu remained, both clearly drunk and barely able to keep their focus. The waiter, glancing over with a mixture of concern and amusement, eventually nudged them awake, reminding them that the rest of their party had already left without them. Out on the streets, the two of them stumbled along, their movements sluggish and uncoordinated. Sun-yu, struggling to maintain his balance, leaned heavily on Hyuna for support. Reacting quickly, she gave him a sharp slap on the cheek, hoping to bring him back to reality. Her voice, though soft, carried an undertone of gentle urgency. She tried to get a sense of where he lived, but Sun-yu's hesitation and nervousness spoke volumes. There was an unmistakable fear in his eyes, one that told Hyuna he had probably been through some difficult or even traumatic experiences at school. As they walked on, a neon sign caught her attention, a nearby motel. Without hesitation, she decided that it was the safest place to take him for the night. Upon entering, she secured a room and carefully helped Sun-yu onto the bed, noting how exhausted he was. She allowed herself a small sigh of relief, remarking to herself that at least he was a skinny guy, which made the situation a bit easier to manage. Despite her focus on helping him, Hyuna couldn't shake the memory of the receptionist's suspicious gaze. The woman had watched her intently, as if silently hoping that Hyuna wouldn't cause any trouble or report what was happening. Despite her own drunken haze, Hyuna found herself repeatedly glancing at Sun-yu's peaceful, sleepy face. There was something almost mesmerizing about the softness of his skin, so smooth and delicate, like that of a baby's. Unable to resist, she gently reached out and touched his cheek, marveling quietly at how tender it felt beneath her fingertips. Just at that moment, Sun-yu's eyes fluttered open, meeting hers with a slow, sleepy gaze. For a brief moment, their eyes locked, and Hyuna felt an unexpected calm wash over her, as if time had slowed down just for them. Eventually, the evening faded into morning, and the reality of their situation returned. The two of them went on to have the workout session together, the awkwardness of the night slowly settling into a more familiar rhythm between them. The next day, Hyuna woke up feeling the heavy weight of a hangover pressing down on her. Her head throbbed as she blinked against the bright light filtering into the room. Beside her, Sun-yu was still fast asleep, lying as peacefully as a child, completely unaware of the turmoil within her mind. It was then that the full shock of what had happened the night before hit her like a wave, and her expression shifted to one of stunned realization, noticing the shock still lingering on Hyuna's face. Charim gently inquired if she actually knew Sun-yu. Hyuna nodded quietly, explaining that they were both students at the same university, which caught Charim off guard. He admitted that this was the first time he had ever encountered such a situation, an unexpected reunion like this in the middle of a training session. Meanwhile, Sun-yu remained just outside the door, knocking gently as he hesitated to speak. His voice, soft and uncertain, carried through the thin barrier as he asked if Hyuna was all right. Hyuna, unsure of how to respond or what to do, looked to Charim for help. Without thinking much, she whispered for him to come up with some excuse. Charim, caught off guard by her sudden push, stumbled and fell to the floor with a surprised yelp. But Hyuna wasn't done yet. She still clutched the door firmly, hesitant to let Sun-yu in just yet. Outside, Sun-yu's voice grew more determined as he tried to reach Charim directly. He asked if the woman standing beside him was the Hyuna he remembered from the math education department at Wusan University. Feeling unsure whether Hyuna would remember him, Sun-yu carefully reminded Charim, and through him, Hyuna, that he had sat right in front of her during the freshman welcome event. The mention of this detail left Hyuna stunned and utterly speechless. She hadn't realized just how much Sun Yu remembered about her, down to such specific moments. Inside, Hyuna felt a growing weight in her chest, struggling to come to terms with the fact that Sun Yu remembered everything about her. Her face, her habits, even the smallest details she had thought forgotten. After a few long moments, unable to hold back any longer, she reluctantly stepped away from the door, allowing Sun Yu to enter. Once inside, Sun Yu's relief was clear as he finally confirmed that she was indeed the Hyuna he had known. He admitted that before seeing her again, he had been unsure whether it was really her. The chance meeting at the gym caught him completely off guard. He even shared how, after their party that night 3 years ago, he had gone searching for her in the math department, only to be told she had taken the semester off. At that moment, Hyuna realized the situation wasn't as awkward or embarrassing as she had initially feared. With a newfound sense of calm, she looked directly at Sun Yu and quietly asked why he had come looking for her in the first place. The question seemed to catch him completely off guard. He hadn't expected her to bring it up so directly. After a brief pause, he finally found the words and admitted with a soft, sincere tone that he had come because he wanted to see her again. Hyuna, caught between surprise and uncertainty, found herself standing frozen, unsure how to respond to his honest confession. Before the silence could grow too heavy, Charim re-entered the room, cutting through the tension with his usual briskness. He urged them to wrap up their unexpected reunion and ask Sun Yu what he wanted to do next. Charim admitted he had even considered canceling the lesson, seeing how the familiarity between Hyuna and Sun Yu had created an uncomfortable atmosphere. However, Sun Yu quickly reassured Charim, apologizing and insisting that he was perfectly fine continuing the session. Seeing Sun Yu's determination and willingness to carry on, Hyuna also decided not to refuse. She nodded her agreement, silently acknowledging that it would be better to move forward rather than dwell on the awkwardness. Meanwhile, in another part of the gym, Hani and Woong were paired up for their workout session. Hani's excitement was palpable. She was thrilled to finally get the chance to work out with Woong, someone she had been anxious about for quite some time. Sensing her nervousness, Soo-hyun stepped in with a calming presence, reminding Hani to stay composed and focused. Soo-hyun then brought out a box filled with various workout tools and equipment. She explained that during today's session, they would be incorporating some special equipment designed to enhance their exercises. Hani's face lit up with enthusiasm at the mention of this, clearly eager to try out the new additions. As Soo-hyun instructed them to begin the session by giving Woong a massage, Hani immediately reached for one of the toys from the box. Soo-hyun raised an eyebrow in surprise, questioning why Hani had taken the equipment without asking first. Hani, without breaking her focus, simply replied that she needed to take it because that particular equipment was more effective for men. Soo-hyun watched closely as Hani's hands wandered beyond the intended areas, clearly doing more than just the simple massage she was supposed to give. With a gentle but firm tone, Soo-hyun stepped in to caution her. She reminded Hani that the massage was meant to focus on Woong's shoulders and back, emphasizing the importance of thoroughly massaging those areas before moving on. Hani nodded, adjusting her approach as Soo-hyun had instructed. Once Soo-hyun saw that Hani had properly massaged Woong's shoulders and back, she calmly directed Woong to lie down on his back and face the ceiling, preparing for the next phase of their workout. At that moment, Hani noticed a subtle change in Woong's demeanor. His body was already becoming more sensitive, and she could tell from his reactions that he no longer needed any additional massage. Seizing the moment, she asked him if he was ready to begin the actual workout. Woong, however, was suddenly shy and found himself unable to meet Hani's eyes. He glanced away awkwardly, cheeks tinged with a faint blush, clearly overwhelmed by her boldness and the unexpected closeness of the moment. During his workout session, Miso suddenly let out a sharp cry of protest, a startled no that broke the rhythm of his training. The thought that Hani might leave him for Woong had unexpectedly invaded his mind, distracting him deeply. His trainer, noticing the sudden outburst, couldn't help but inquire about his well-being, prompting Miso to quickly apologize for drifting off into his own thoughts. He realized he couldn't afford to behave like that, especially since his focus needed to be fully on his workout partner. Despite his efforts, Miso's gaze kept slipping toward the person training alongside him, a striking individual with blonde hair who bore a resemblance to Hani, stirring a mixture of emotions within him. They pushed through the remainder of their session, ultimately finishing strong, with the trainer praising their effort and declaring it a great workout. Meanwhile, Soo-hyun was busy demonstrating various workout techniques to Hani, making sure Woong could clearly understand the movements and proper use of the equipment. After explaining the basics, she encouraged Woong to try it himself, which he did with eager anticipation, although he found the device unsettling due to the way it moved awkwardly. Observing Woong's posture and technique, Soo-hyun gently corrected his form. However, Woong's mind began to wander, his thoughts running wild despite Soo-hyun's attempts to bring his focus back. Hani, ever observant, noticed his distracted behavior and couldn't help but smirk at the situation. She pointed out that no matter how well Soo-hyun explained things verbally, it was still just words, and suggested that Soo-hyun demonstrate how the device was meant to be used on herself. Soo-hyun initially hesitated, reluctant to agree, but Hani insisted, reminding her that Woong had never seen this equipment before, so a live demonstration would be far more effective. Woong also expressed his approval of the idea, leaving Soo-hyun with no real choice but to comply. Reluctantly, Soo-hyun began the demonstration on herself, her cheeks flushing deeply from the embarrassment of performing the exercise in front of both Woong and Hani. As she moved through the motions, she gradually relaxed and continued to explain what she was doing, noting how much Woong seemed captivated by her every action. Meanwhile, Hani's laughter filled the room, her amusement evident as she declared how much fun the entire scene was, clearly enjoying the light-hearted moment that had unfolded between them. Woong then expressed his interest in trying the device on Soo-hyun herself. Without hesitation, Hani took the initiative to gently hold Soo-hyun steady, offering encouragement for Woong to go ahead and give it a try. Soo-hyun, after a moment's consideration, granted her permission. Woong carefully picked up the device and began using it on her, while Hani continued to assist and guide the process. The sensation was unexpectedly intense for Soo-hyun, causing her to suddenly bolt away from the situation, flushed and overwhelmed. Hani quickly sprang into action, chasing after her with a mix of concern and amusement. Nearby, Charim glanced over at the commotion, curious about what had just happened, but ultimately decided it was none of his business and refocused his attention on the upcoming session involving Hyuna and Sunyu. Charim began by instructing Sunyu to start the massage using oil on Hyuna. Observing Hyuna's physique, Sunyu skipped any hesitation and followed Karim's directions confidently. To everyone's surprise, especially Hyuna's, Sunyu's technique was remarkably effective. Even Charim felt a sense of pride in having trained Sunyu so well, noting how both of them were doing excellently. He then announced that the massage portion of the session would conclude there and that they would soon transition into the workout segment. Hyuna and her friend were seated together, leisurely sipping their drinks, when her friend couldn't help but notice the sudden brightness in Hyuna's mood. Curious, she inquired about what had caused this unexpected change, but Hyuna found herself unable to clearly explain exactly what had happened to make her feel this way. Deep down, Hyuna understood the reason herself. It had been quite some time since she had experienced such a fulfilling workout session. While she had certainly worked out before, none of those previous sessions had quite matched the quality and satisfaction she felt from the recent one with Sunyu, which she silently considered the best she had ever had. As these thoughts occupied her mind, Hyuna unexpectedly ran into Sunyu. At first, she didn't immediately recognize him, but it was Sunyu who called out her name, prompting her to look up. The moment their eyes met, she felt a flutter of shyness wash over her, realizing that she would likely encounter him again more often than she had anticipated. Sunyu, on the other hand, was genuinely pleased, remarking internally how it seemed like he was seeing Hyuna everywhere he went. Hyuna was taken aback by how openly Sunyu acknowledged knowing her, finding his straightforwardness surprising yet somewhat reassuring. Sunyu was about to bring up the events from the previous day, but Hyuna's expression shifted instantly, a flicker of concern crossing her face as she questioned why he would want to discuss such matters now, especially with her friend present. Determined to keep their conversation private and prevent any suspicion or curiosity from her friend, she quickly pulled Sunyu aside to a quieter spot. In a hushed tone, she urged him to wait and continue their discussion away from prying eyes. To ensure her friend Eun-young remained unsuspecting, Hyuna asked her to head to class without her, explaining that she would catch up later and even offered to save her a seat. Eunyoung, trusting her friend's judgment, agreed without hesitation, leaving Hyuna and Sunyu to talk discreetly in a secluded corner. As Hyuna pulled Sunyu aside to a quiet corner, she pressed him gently against the wall while she stood directly before him. A closeness that momentarily made Sunyu wonder if Hyuna might have deeper feelings for him. However, that assumption was quickly dispelled as Hyuna suddenly raised her voice, sharply questioning why he was behaving as if he truly knew her so well in the first place. Sunyu, trying to calm the situation, explained that he simply wanted to ask if she had enjoyed their workout together the previous day. Although Hyuna had suspected that might be the case, she hadn't expected him to be so loud and brash about it, which made her think that perhaps Sunyu was acting a bit strange. She firmly instructed him to behave as if he didn't know her whenever they were outside, especially around other guys or anywhere on campus, emphasizing the importance of keeping their connection discreet. Just as Hyuna turned to leave, her gaze momentarily drifted downward, but she quickly caught herself, wondering why her eyes had wandered there so suddenly. Before she could shake off the awkward moment, Sunyu mustered the courage to ask for her phone number. Curious but cautious, Hyuna asked what he intended to do with it. Sunyu replied that it was so they could coordinate their workouts more easily. However, Hyuna wasn't convinced by his explanation. She was well aware that she wanted to work out with other men too and hadn't joined the gym just to have sessions exclusively with him. After all, she knew she could work out with Sunyu anytime, even at that very moment as they stood together. Still, a flicker of uncertainty crept into her mind, making her wonder what their relationship would become if she began working out with him whenever she pleased. She wasn't sure whether that would be considered dating already or not. After some contemplation, she decided it probably shouldn't be seen that way, and with a thoughtful tone, she asked Sunyu if they could meet outside the gym for private workout sessions. Meanwhile, Charim was engaged in a private workout session with a woman who had been making noticeable progress in her weight loss journey. Observing her carefully, he complimented her on how much slimmer her figure had become, praising her dedication and effort. After their session concluded, Charim sent a message to Soohyun, casually asking if she planned to come over to his place. However, Soohyun quickly replied that she wouldn't be able to make it because she needed to take Woong to the hospital. As the woman finished getting dressed and prepared to leave, Charim lightheartedly told her to reach out anytime she was craving chicken and beer, adding a playful touch to their goodbye. What Charim didn't realize was that Soohyun had used Woong as an excuse to avoid facing him at that moment. Her mind was elsewhere, burdened by a dream she had the night before. A dream in which she had been working out with Woong. The memory lingered in her thoughts, puzzling her as to why such a dream had occurred. Deciding it was best to stop over-analyzing the situation, she acknowledged that she had been feeling increasingly disconnected from herself lately, as if a part of her was slipping away. Lost in these thoughts, Soohyun was suddenly startled when her dog knocked against someone, causing that person to fall. Soohyun hadn't caught a glimpse of the man's face, but a wave of hope washed over her that it wasn't Woong again. Not wanting to deal with any unexpected encounters at that time, Woong found himself unable to shake the lingering thoughts of the demonstration he had with Soohyun at the gym as he strolled through the park, his mind drifting far away from the peaceful surroundings. The images of Soohyun's movements and the subtle tension of that moment replayed vividly in his head, causing him to become so absorbed that he had to slap himself hard on both cheeks, hoping the sharp sensation would pull him back to reality. The sudden, unexpected gesture startled nearby passers-by, who instinctively stepped aside to avoid the sudden flurry. Just then, Soohyun's dog came barreling toward him again, this time with a muzzle securely fastened around its mouth. Soohyun hurried over, apologizing profusely for her pet's unruly behavior. Woong waved off her concerns, insisting that it was no trouble at all. She confessed her confusion over why the dog acted so differently around him and gently asked if he wanted to go to the hospital, worried he might have been hurt. Woong reassured her with a calm refusal, assuring her that he was perfectly fine. Noticing the slight guilt clouding her expression, he quickly suggested that a coffee might be a better remedy, softening the mood between them. Soohyun smiled, bought 2 cups of coffee from a nearby vendor, and handed one to Woong. They settled on a bench and began chatting casually about sports and fitness. Soohyun shared how she had tried almost every sport offered at school at least once, to which Woong teased that she must have majored in athletics. Laughing, she admitted she always found herself coming back to weight training, She then advised him to focus not just on cardio workouts but to actively work on building muscle mass as well, warning that too much cardio without muscle training could cause loss of muscle tone. Woong nodded thoughtfully, appreciating the advice and making a mental note to incorporate more strength training into his routine. Later on, back at the gym, a woman was noticeably distressed after weighing herself and discovering she had gained around 400 grams. Despite the trainer's efforts to reassure her that such a small fluctuation was nothing to worry about, she continued to fret and fuss over the number, unable to shake her disappointment. Later in the dressing room, the lady couldn't help but admire Soo-hyun's physique, openly declaring that Soo-hyun must be her ultimate body goal. She assumed Soo-hyun had likely never experienced insecurities about her own figure, given how toned and confident she appeared. However, Soo-hyun quickly dispelled that misconception, revealing that everyone struggles with body insecurities at some point. She confided that she had often been self-conscious about her thighs, frustrated by her difficulty in building muscle there. What she truly desired was hard, defined quadriceps, a trait the lady found surprising since, in her experience, most women didn't want such a muscular look. Still, Soo-hyun insisted that strong, sculpted quads would look fantastic, confidently standing by her unique preference. As they made their way toward the session room, the lady chatted animatedly, her warmth and friendliness leaving a positive impression on Soo-hyun. She felt a spark of excitement about the upcoming session, sensing it would be both enjoyable and rewarding. However, that mood quickly shifted when the lady's eyes landed on Woong. Without hesitation, she reached out to stretch his slightly flabby tummy, creating an elastic ripple across his skin. Her expression twisted into one of disgust as she made a biting comment about his chubbiness, openly belittling his body. Soo-hyun immediately stepped in, firmly admonishing the lady that disparaging remarks about other members were not tolerated. She warned her that, while she would let this instance slide, such behavior was highly frowned upon and would not be acceptable going forward. Woong himself was visibly upset by the lady's harsh words, partly because they stung and partly because, deep down, he recognized a grain of truth in her critique. Fueled by a mixture of determination and wounded pride, he resolved to work hard to impress her, not out of admiration, but so that he could confidently reject her later, proving his own worth on his own terms. Soo-hyun then mentioned that since Woong had already completed several workout sessions, she planned to introduce some more challenging moves into today's routine. She took the time to carefully explain the new exercises, ensuring both Woong and the lady understood the proper form and technique to avoid injury and maximize effectiveness. To begin, Soo-hyun instructed them to start with a massage session, which immediately caught Woong's attention. He was genuinely excited, as massage was something he particularly enjoyed and felt confident doing. The lady, too, was pleasantly surprised by Woong's skillful technique, visibly relaxing and showing signs of genuine pleasure from the way he expertly worked on her muscles. As Woong continued, he couldn't help but wonder how the lady truly felt about his massage. Despite the satisfaction he brought her, the downside was that the effort left him physically drained. Noticing this, Soo-hyun checked in on him, her concern evident as she asked if he was feeling all right. Soo-hyun then suggested that they switch roles, allowing the lady to become the masseuse this time. The lady eagerly took on the role, asking Woong if he was a professional masseur, commenting that the experience felt just like the aromatic massages she had enjoyed during her trip to Thailand last year. She complimented Woong on his earlier efforts, acknowledging that he had done a commendable job. As she began her own massage, Woong, initially skeptical and convinced he wouldn't be impressed, soon found himself pleasantly surprised by her skillful and soothing touch. After the massage exchange, the two smoothly transitioned into their workout session, with Soo-hyun's clear and precise instructions guiding them every step of the way. The atmosphere was focused but relaxed, with both Woong and the lady motivated to push through the exercises under Soo-hyun's expert supervision. Meanwhile, Charim was later seen sitting in his office, casually scrolling through various costume designs for purchase, his mind drifting as he imagined Soo-hyun dressed in one of the outfits. However, his daydream was abruptly interrupted when a police officer unexpectedly entered the room. The sudden appearance startled Charim so much that his phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. Noticing the policeman's arrival, the other trainer quickly slipped away to avoid any confrontation or suspicion. Charim, overwhelmed by a rising sense of panic, couldn't help but think back to all the strange and chaotic events that had plagued the gym. He was filled with regret for being on duty that day and frantically began to consider how he might navigate his way out of this troubling situation. When the police noticed Karim's obvious fear, he quickly reassured him by explaining that he was actually on his lunch break. He then added that he had come to the gym to sign up for a membership. Hearing this, Karim felt an immediate wave of relief wash over him. The police officer then remarked that he didn't think Karim was getting enough exercise sitting in front of a computer all day, which was why he was seriously considering taking up workouts at the gym. Karim, trying to keep the mood light, offered the officer a seat and asked what he'd like to drink. The police replied that he was fine with just water. As Karim went to fetch the water, his mind raced, wondering how he could politely get the policeman to leave once he was done. Returning with the glass of water, Karim gave a carefully crafted excuse, telling the officer that it would have been better if he had come sooner because the gym membership was currently full and they were not accepting any new members at the moment. Not one to give up easily, the policeman then asked if Karim could put him on a waiting list instead, saying he could tell that the trainers here must be incredible. Seeing no real way to refuse, Karim agreed and handed him a form to write down his name and contact number so they could reach out when a spot opened up. After the policeman finished filling out the form, Karim asked him politely to leave, hoping that would be the end of it. However, the policeman surprised him by requesting a tour of the gym's facilities before he left. Karim's frustration started to build. He was tired, stressed, and just wanted the situation to end. But he knew better than to shout or cause a scene with the officer, so he reluctantly agreed to show him around. But Karim really had no choice but to comply, so he eventually agreed to show the policeman around the gym. Trying to sound casual and nonchalant, he explained that the reason the membership was full was simply because the gym's facilities were small and couldn't accommodate many people at once. As they walked down the corridor, the policeman's eyes suddenly landed on a door at the end of the hall. Pointing at it, he asked Karim what the room was used for. Caught off guard by the question, Karim quickly thought on his feet and fabricated an answer, saying that the room was where they stored and prepared their workout equipment. He added that it was a restricted area meant only for staff members. But the policeman, curious and persistent, wondered aloud why it would be such a big deal if he were to see inside. Just then, Miso and Hani returned from their shopping trip. Hani's eyes immediately widened in shock when she saw the police officer standing there with Karim. Karim felt a surge of relief, hoping that Hani would step in and do what she usually did, intimidate or scare off unwanted visitors like the police. However, to his surprise, Hani dropped the shopping boxes she was carrying and walked right up to the policeman with an unexpected admiration in her eyes. With a bright smile, she complimented the officer, saying he looked cute. Without hesitation, she asked him if he had come to the gym to work out and whether he had already signed up for a membership. The policeman, clearly unsettled by her boldness and dramatic flair, visibly shrank back, unsure of how to respond. Meanwhile, Karim was inwardly groaning and disappointed at Hani's unexpected behavior. She had completely forgotten about Miso, who stood nearby quietly, as Hani went as far as complimenting the policeman's neatly pressed clothes, commenting on how well-ironed and smart he looked. As Karim saw Hani was about to go too far with her compliments and overly friendly approach, he quickly covered her mouth with his hand and gently but firmly pulled her away from the police officer. Turning to the officer, Karim sincerely apologized on Hani's behalf, explaining that she could get a little carried away sometimes. He assured the policeman that he would personally show him around the gym another time when things were less hectic. With that, the police officer didn't get another chance to explore the gym further and soon took his leave. Later, back at Hani's apartment, the mood was tense. Hani was visibly angry at Karim for cutting her off and not letting her continue the conversation with the policeman. However, Miso, trying to calm the situation, patiently explained that Karim had actually done the right thing. He reasoned that having a police officer as a member, while not impossible, might complicate things for their business. Hani, still irritated, shot back, "What's wrong with having a police officer as a member? Everyone knows cops work out too." Miso nodded but pressed on, explaining more carefully that if their gym were to come under official investigation, even if everything turned out legal, the mere fact that they had a police officer involved could spark headlines and negative publicity. He warned that the gym might even be forced to close down as a result, which was something none of them wanted. Slowly, Hani began to understand Miso's concerns. Yet she still felt a little conflicted because she had never considered their business to be anything but legitimate. Miso agreed with her on that point but emphasized that they needed to be cautious to avoid any misunderstandings that could put them in a bad light. Seeing that Hani's mood had shifted to sadness, mostly because she felt she'd missed her chance with the policeman, Miso decided to lighten things up. He changed into a tough-looking, authoritative uniform he had bought earlier, hoping to cheer her up and perhaps satisfy her admiration for law enforcement. The moment Hani glanced at him dressed like that, her eyes lit up and she couldn't help but fall for him all over again. Encouraged by the shift in energy, they both decided to dive into a workout session. After an intense and physically demanding workout session that stretched well into the evening, Hani and Miso finally wrapped up their training. By the time they were done, both were thoroughly exhausted, their bodies aching from the relentless pace they had kept. When morning arrived, Hani, still committed to her responsibilities, prepared herself for a scheduled meeting at the gym. As she got ready to leave, she glanced over to where Miso lay, completely passed out from the previous day's exertion, sprawled across the futon in a deep, unmoving sleep. It was clear that Miso wouldn't be getting up anytime soon. At the gym, the atmosphere during the trainers' meeting was focused and methodical. The lead trainer methodically went over the agenda, outlining the finalized schedule for the upcoming week. He emphasized the importance of notifying gym members at least 2 days in advance in the event of any changes. As the details were discussed, Soo-hyun, who had been quietly taking mental notes, suddenly noticed that Woong's name was conspicuously absent from the current week's training roster. The realization left her with a subtle but unmistakable pang of disappointment that she tried not to show. Not long after, Hani took the floor and announced that she had recently purchased new equipment for the trainers to incorporate into their sessions. With a bright smile, she casually attributed the idea to Soo-hyun, praising her for her supposed insight and initiative. Soo-hyun, however, was visibly caught off guard by the unexpected credit. She blinked in surprise, completely unaware of having ever made such a suggestion. Her confusion was compounded as several male trainers turned to look at her with amused curiosity. Embarrassed and flustered, Soo-hyun quickly distanced herself from the claim, denying any involvement and sharply telling Hani to stop spreading strange and misleading stories. As Woong strolled past the familiar row of shops near the gym, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifted into the air. Just as he passed one of the cafes, the door swung open and out stepped Soo-hyun, a to-go cup in hand and a surprised yet pleasant expression on her face. Their eyes met, and they exchanged a warm, casual greeting. She remarked with a note of surprise that he was quite early today, her brows slightly raised in playful curiosity. In response, Woong explained that their previous conversation had lingered in his mind, prompting him to make a change. Motivated by her encouragement, he had decided to come earlier and take his workout more seriously. Seeing her right outside the gym felt like an unexpected reward, lifting his spirits and adding a spring to his step. Soo-hyun, clearly pleased, expressed how happy she was to hear that and mentioned that she happened to have a bit of free time at the moment. With a small smile, she offered to spot him during his training session, an offer Woong accepted with visible enthusiasm. Just as they began walking toward the gym together, Woong's phone buzzed in his pocket. Glance at the screen revealed it was his mother calling. He hesitated for a brief moment, his body tensing slightly as if debating whether or not to answer. Noticing his discomfort, Soo-hyun gave him an encouraging nod, telling him it was all right to take the call. Woong finally picked up, holding the phone to his ear as they continued walking. His mother's voice came through, full of energy, asking whether everything was going well at the dojo. Woong, struggling to keep his voice steady, answered nervously that everything was fine. Then, without skipping a beat, his mother asked about his next match, her tone full of expectation. Caught off guard and unsure how to respond, Woong abruptly ended the call in a semi-stylish, awkward flourish, trying to pass it off as casual. He turned to Soo-hyun with a sheepish expression and asked if she had heard everything. With a mixture of embarrassment and honesty, he admitted that his mother still believed he was continuing with judo. In truth, he hadn't yet mustered the courage to tell his parents he had quit. They had always had such high hopes for him, and he didn't know how to break it to them without disappointing them. The air between them grew heavier with his confession, and by the time they stepped into the elevator, a quiet awkwardness had settled, neither of them speaking as they ascended. Once they arrived at the gym, Soo-hyun broke the silence, shifting back into her professional tone. She informed Woong that for today's session, he would be working with another trainer. Since their training program was done in pairs, she explained, it was common for a trainee's partner's trainer to take over from time to time for variety and technique balance. Today, Woong would be paired with Charim, a trainer he must have at least seen around the gym.